Class, welcome to week 11. We are working on drafting our research papers this week. This is our final week to work on the research paper. So by now you will have submitted your outlines, and I'm going to look at those as quickly as I can. Hopefully I'll have feedback for you by Tuesday. That's my goal. So what you want to work on this week is putting it all together and starting to draft, particularly your introduction and conclusion. I have a handout on writing intro and conclusion sections under week 11. So you want to review that handout. And remember what we're doing. And I'm going to go back and remind you one more time. You're using APA to format this paper. So be sure that you are following all APA guidelines. I have a lot of resources for you for APA. You can also always go to the Writer's Center. And I highly recommend you use the Writer's Center for this research paper. This paper is a substantial part of your grade. It's 25% of your grade. And I will be grading you on the use of APA. So your paper has to look like it looks in the sample, with the title page, with headers, with your reference page. You must follow APA guidelines. All right. So part of your work this week is to complete a thorough review of a sample research paper. This research paper is in APA format. It's a paper from a former student of mine, and this paper did well on this assignment. It's the exact same assignment. So the discussion board is going to, the virtual attendance assignment, I believe it's in a journal format, is going to ask you to go through a series of questions about that paper. So what that will do for you is really show you a model of what your paper should look like. So you can use that paper as a guideline for your own paper. Remember, you're presenting at least two viewpoints of a controversial topic. You're going to have an introduction that's going to frame up the compelling nature and background of the issue. Your introduction, which will be 1 to 2 paragraphs long, will end with your objective thesis statement, which presents the two viewpoints. Then you will have a header, a bolded header in the center, bolded, that describes your first viewpoint as stated in your thesis. You must support this viewpoint by presenting at least 2 claims that give background, give support to your viewpoint. 2 reasons why that viewpoint is a valid viewpoint. You can have more than 2 claims, but you have to have at least 2. Each claim is going to be discussed in its own paragraph. Therefore, you'll have a minimum of 2 paragraphs in this first section. Each of those claims is going to be supported by quoted evidence from at least one of your 5 sources. So the journal articles are going to be the evidence that support your claims. Each paragraph has to have at least 1 quote. And remember, whenever you use a quote, you will first introduce the quote with the signal phrase, and a statement or a phrase that tells me that you're using a quote and why it's important. And then afterwards, you're going to discuss the quote. You'll never just leave a quote hanging. You won't just drop a quote into your section without first setting it up with a signal phrase and then having discussion afterwards. Then you'll move on to your second viewpoint, which will also be introduced by a header, which is centered and bolded, that describes the second viewpoint as stated in your thesis. Your headers, in a sense, act as transitions between your sections. And just as in the first section, you must support this viewpoint by presenting at least 2 claims. And just as in the first section, you can have more than 2. You aren't required, but you must have 2. Each claim will be discussed in its own paragraph, supported by quoted evidence from your journal articles. Finally, you could have a third section doing the same as these first two sections, but you aren't required to. You'll end your paper with a conclusion of at least a paragraph, a good solid 7 to 9 sentence paragraph that's going to restate your viewpoints and discuss the future of your issue, how it might be resolved, how we could think of it in the future. All right, so then today's mini lesson has to do with parenthetical references and block quotes. So I really want you to pay attention. When I looked at your discussion board on your quote sandwich, kind of the number one problem was improper use of either signal phrases or parenthetical references, and improper citation on the reference sheet. So you really want to go through and, check yourself for APA guideline usage. And this is a fairly long mini lesson which goes through how to use quotes with multiple authors if you don't have an author. If you're using a block quote, which is a long quote, in APA that's 40 words or more, and I have samples. So you definitely want to go through your mini lesson today so that you understand how to properly use your quotes. All right, so get working on drafting your paper, get working on your intros and your conclusions. Do your virtual assignment on Tuesday, and I'll be back with another announcement on Thursday, having to do most likely with, again, just the overall APA format of your paper. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.